Chapter 1, Predestined. Through faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the Word of God, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. Hebrews 11:3. For most forms of being with sentience, a drop into space-time through an extra-dimensional transfer is shocking. It could be a splashdown into a cold world, but with an ecosphere in location, in relativistic time disconforming to prior experience. They sometimes seem out of phase before quantification adjustments to a quark matrix force structure banning time quanta. Right, I think so too, Yvette. There's nothing like a blind date with the mystery world. Yvette and I finished drinking coffee at Predestined Plaza and returned to work on the library reconstruction project commissioned by Abbott Waden. Yvette wanted to stay in free parsecs beyond universal corporate influence to avoid recapture and dragooning down into a shelf-life status. She was too happy to accompany me to Predestined to invest some personal time volunteering for good works. Her planet of origin, Glebir, is under constant corporate surveillance, since they'd invested a lot of corporate assets in making of her a valuable product. They would be spending some time trying to get her back. She was an effective advertising symbol. Human trafficking is one of the under-the-table trades of galactic corporate networks. Some of the off-the-grid planets were growing quite the crop of humanoids for sex and body part shops. Another reason for Yvette to lend a hand on the makeover of the venerable temple of God on Predestined. A few days after arriving on Predestined, we were approached by one Grand Master Konspiran Solobinsk of Temprova, a world hitherto unknown to Yvette or me. Through the classical shadow of time emerged the story of a singular missing widget. Predestined's latest library temple renewal was an artful scheme. The aesthetic feeling of living structure gradually returned with polish and purpose, replacing the existing photon-absorbent exterior coating with pseudo-stones, creating increased energy cogeneration. Ambient temperature pseudo-stones are hollow and filled with matter lifting up by actuator nanopumps to the top of the temple, powered by electromagnetic field engines, stimulated with sunlight. The temple is shaped like an inverted pyramid hourglass and releases mass during hours of darkness to flow down in the gravity well to low-speed turbine intakes, generating power. In the dark gravity fall phase, the flow of matter is given an electric charge, becoming electromagnetic, creating a strong phased magnetic field in the particulate mass and increased energy generation in the flow. A compound electromagnetic field power generation matrix also exploits the charged mass switched on and off, flowing through a circular gear at the narrow point between pyramids. Yvette and I watched the library temple process through its diurnal energy generation cycle from the base of the 500-foot-tall structure. Yvette wore a net set of multivision selector corneas provided by the brothers. Looking as lovely as ever, she said, "The infrared flow of energy produced in 3 different ways is beautiful to observe." I would like to see that myself, Yvette, and you can switch between vision modes with willed thought, just like that. The corneal microsensors detect relevant thought alpha waves and react. A stranger broke away from a cluster of souls touring the temple grounds and walked over to us. He wore a drab gray Kevtech hooded robe and fast-tech footwear. When he approached us, he stopped to say, "Dr. Voywoda, I am Grand Master Konspiran Solobinsk of the dappled fine planet Temprova." I saw that Grand Master Solobinsk was tall and thin. Perhaps he had spent decades studying schematic diagrams and skipping lunch. He continued speaking. Temprova was the secret home of the Universal Widget. It was in my care with Higgs Masons until it turned up missing from the Higgs Masonic Temple Museum of Widgets last Thursday. Yvette asked, "Mr. Solobinsk, what kind of Thursday do you have on Temprova relative to us here at Predestined? That is, with space-time relativity, when would you say the Thursday was? And where was it in the temporal order in regard to the universal field in itself?" Konspiran, let me introduce you to my bosom friend Yvette. We asked him to join us for a fat bean sprout and protein paste on fresh rye bread with honey mustard sandwich at our table. He demurred and smiled, looking as interested in food as the IRA faster Bobby Sands. He pulled up a chair and began to relate his tale of woe about a missing widget. A cool breeze arrived from the hills. Yvette asked Solobinsk, "You've traveled quite a distance to discuss your missing widget with us. Why is that?" Yvette was getting a little counterplay with GM Solobinsk. Temprova is a synthetic world constructed by the Higgs Masons of the galaxy. It is a Higgs Masonic world lodge, as a clear Dyson sphere for itself, so closely surrounding a white dwarf star, providing heat and energy, gravity, and cohesion enough for one world as a quantum computer multitask dwelling structure. Sometimes it's here, sometimes it's there, often entangling with distant gravitational fields, so we can find our world catching its way about the universe. The Universal Widget compensated for atmospheric and gravitational changes. It will become difficult to maintain Temprova's ecosphere in balance without the intercession of the wonderful widget. We let Conspiron continue his attempt to sell us on the virtues of the missing Universal Widget. The Dyson Sphere is a photon-absorbing electron battery. The exterior appearance for others is purely stealth black body that wraps relativistically around an ambient astrophysical background. Temprova is virtually undetectable and should have been a safe place to keep the Universal Widget. Our Thursday is a local Thursday using a near universal atomic chronometer scheduling the traditional 24-hour day temporal template with the Earth orbital cycle recorded in history at approximately 365 days. Traditions are especially important to keep when there are no close stars for a planet to follow on. Temprova, in regard to our own white dwarf star, time is perpetual now. All space-time positions in relation to the dwarf star fulfilled and entropy minimal. I warped speed and space-time to reach predestined before the today space-time receded and I was left in oblivion. The Thursday event happened. In relation to predestined time, it was just close enough that I reached you and Mr. Woiwoda without accomplishing the recovery of the Universal Widget. You believe in retrocausality, then? Yes, Dr. Woiwoda. One can be optimistic without undue harm to one's interests. Retrocausality is a good theory that creates a lot of problems. It would require more energy to reverse a complex anisotropic space-time field than was ever used to create it. Ending up with more energy than exists in the entire universe to retrocause the universe would be comparable to compiling a sum of 100 and subtracting 150 from 100, leaving a remainder of plus 50. Improbable. Sure, yet reversing the time order to change the past can be quite expensive in terms of energy. What is so wonderful about the Universal Widget, Mr. Solobinsk? Is it smaller than a bread box, besides being the Platonic universal generalized form of all widgets? Yvette added, is it the mother of all widgets? Conspiron was a ready salesman. The Universal Widget's origin was shrouded in mystery. It is the widget of widgets. Its form changes such that it becomes what it is without evolving from what it was. Simultaneously, it is the producer product in extemporal quantum shape of actualized potential necessary to provide solutions to problems. I asked him, sounds like a handy thing to have around, Mr. Solobinsk. If your widget is so sharp, why haven't I seen one for sale around the galaxy? You have encountered derivative manufacturers of the widget in various forms, Dr. Woiwoda, without recognizing the parent widget. It is the producer of ideas developed into product and sale, not the definite articles for sale in themselves. The widget itself never leaves Temprova and was never absent until Thursday. Yvette moved a full lock of hair from her forehead and asked, and you want help from Patrick in finding that special trinket that could be anywhere in the universe by now and in no particular form? I decided then not to bother asking for a description of the missing widget. Precisely, Dr. Yvette, for reasonable compensation, of course. I wanted to know, and what would that be? Anything you wish from the Universal Widget. Not 3 wishes, Mr. Solobinsk? Yes, if you wish, 3 wishes of the Universal Widget. I agreed. I could use 3 wishes. That sounds acceptable. Would you change your mind and join us for a sandwich and a glass of liquid nutrition? A bowl of sweet grass would be excellent, please. That would set a precedent for human omnivores. You eat grass? Yes, it's infused into my DNA. The survivors of biodiversity collapse on my planet of origin, Yuskov, had to adapt to a social world hollowed out by globalist shepherds of billions of proles yearning for positive sensory feedback. We innovated a redesign of consumer objects for themselves, enabling every prole to satisfy his, her, or its energy input desire with equal satisfaction. We all were converted with retro bioengineering to eat blue grass with 1 redesign and 3 new stomachs. Later I exfiltrated to the Higgs Masonic Lodge of Temprova when it made a flyby of our storage system. This is not tobacco I am chewing. It is my cud. The immediate challenge was to say something with grace that didn't sound condescending. He might be sensitive about what others thought about his chewing a cud. I'd wager it's a pain to keep a plentiful grass supply on some missions. Dr. Woiwoda, we have grass pellets and a variety of long-lasting forms of grass, many of which can be dried and preserved. The better sweet grass is a blend of euphoric stimulants and celluloid. I wasn't really so interested in the grass encyclopedia entry. He was like as not a buildup of nanobot mass replacement of lifespan, expired bioform, and needed infinitesimal and fractalized perceptions of euphoria to grease his mechanical soul. I'll write about the widget. With computer-aided designs and manufacturing, how does an individual unit differ in itself from the potential of any artificial intelligence guiding manufacturing system to create a new or necessary product, Mr. Solobinsky? Before leaving her chair at the table at the base of the pyramid and walking off toward a lane between temples, Yvette said, "Pat, I know where I can cut a fresh lawn for a bowl of sweet grass. I shall return." Solobins continued speaking about the object widget, motivating his journey to see us predestined.